morning to anyone listening to this episode of Tackling Tacos. It's going to be a really short one. Sometimes I like these, like even not just for Tackling Tacos, but for podcasts in general. And again, podcast is such a weird word to pluralize. It's like ghost or youth. Go ahead, try it. Try it wherever you are right now, sitting or driving or I don't know what you're doing, working out. Maybe. I have no idea. Anyway, but like there's this one podcast I listen to called History Daily. I don't listen to it every single day. You know, it's sort of like Joe Rogan podcast or whatever. I don't listen to all of them, but if the title grabs my attention, then I'll listen to it. But anyway, yeah, History Daily is basically the opposite of Joe Rogan, and the fact that it's bite-sized, like they basically just take, today is March 25th, and on this day, March 25th in history, this happened, and it's usually like 15 minutes long, because sometimes you don't have time to listen to like a 3-hour marathon episode with a comedian that Joe Rogan's had on 11 other times. But anyway, so this episode's going to be short. And I'm not doing this for fake engagement. I've never been that dude. I will never be that dude. I don't care if somebody told me like, hey man, you can, you know, you're trying to do that 1,000 subscriber giveaway thing on YouTube. If you say, hey, smash that subscribe button, bro, or whatever, hit the like, hit the notification bell, you'll go to 10,000 subscribers. I still wouldn't do it. I will never sell my soul to be a gross, like, salesperson, or I don't know. Like sometimes YouTube folk just drive me crazy. It's so oddly narcissistic and strange and whatever. Anyway, that has nothing to do with anything I wanted to talk about. I was just thinking out loud sometimes thinking as you're talking is dangerous. You know what I'm saying? Like when I was a kid, I used to get in trouble a lot for like starting fights or actually getting in physical fights or like confrontations, I guess you could say, where maybe they didn't turn physical. And I remember my mom, who is a therapist, would always say like, you gotta think before you talk. And I guess that's true, but sometimes thinking while you talk is dangerous, at least for me. I'm 99% sure I have some superior level of ADHD. And so my brain is always thinking in 11 different directions as I'm talking in one direction. But anyway, sorry. So, excuse me. What I was saying about fake engagement, I don't mean, hey, what are your thoughts? Comment down below. I don't know why I talk like a young Keanu Reeves when I'm impersonating YouTube people. But I really do actually like legitimately want your help here. So if you're listening to this episode, yes, you, point at yourself, yes, you, I want your help. I was thinking last night, my middle boy, Vinny, and I went fishing in Chippewa Falls. There's this little teeny lake right by our house called Glen Lock, and it's one of the few places around that's open right now. And so we went there and just fished from shore, didn't take the boat out or anything. And then right below Glen Lock is a spillway that is actually where I learned how to do backflips, not on a trampoline, because there's like a handrail and you could backflip off of it into like the frothy water. And I don't know if that makes a difference, but in my head as a kid, it was very much like, well, the frothy water is softer. And now that I say that out loud, it sounds really stupid. But we were fishing there, and he was throwing a cross-eyes Z-Man chatterbait, and I was throwing a Beast Coast compact 97% tungsten flipping jig. He got hung up in the rocks and lost his cross-eye chatterbait. I got hung up in the rocks on the spillway side of things when we went down there and lost my Beast Coast jig. And I think I have a couple others, but it got me thinking, like, for me, and I don't know where you're at on the map, but for me, season has not kicked off yet. Like, I don't have my first derby until mid-April with Nate in Iowa, which, if you haven't heard, we won it last time that derby was there. So, you know, pretty big deal. We were totally joking on one episode, like we should put a smoke machine in his boat. And the lake that we're going to, it's called Lost Grove in Iowa, and it's a no-wake lake. And so, like, your launch position doesn't really matter, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe a little bit, because you're all kind of going the same speed, but it'd be really funny to go there and try and, like, cause a scene. Like, no, we get first launch. We get first takeoff because we won this last year. Look at the smoke machine. and have like, what's that Crazy Train? I, dum dum, dum dum, dum dum, playing in like a big Bluetooth speaker or something. Just that opening part, not the whole song. I have to admit on that song, number one, unpopular opinion, I think it's overrated. But number two, unpopular opinion, once the drums come in on that song, it goes from like really intense, like hype up, and then the drums come, it goes from like hype up motivational rock song into like Disney sing-along musical in about 3 seconds flat. And you can hate me for saying that, but that song is good for about 15 seconds. Hate me if you like. But anyway, I don't have my first derby till April 18th there, and then here in Wisconsin doesn't kick off till early May, and then I have quite a few. So we're not ready. All that to say, I'm kind of in mental prep mode, get ready for the season mode, and, you know, every angler, especially those who are tournament fishermen, have this sort of never-ending mindset of, oh crap, I need more of this lure. Even though, so like my friend Brian Beebe, shout out Brian Beebe, to do Nate's part, shout out. If you don't know, when we do that point, that's supposed to be like an air horn. So shout out Brian Beebe, who invited me into this club, but he showed me a picture the other day. I think it's his garage, and his entire wall is covered in plastics. A vast majority are like Strike King, and then he's got some old school like KVD Perfect plastics and coffee tubes and some net bait stuff. Really dope stuff. The net bait Pack-A-Craw, I know a lot of people use it, but I still, even with the amount of people that use it, I still think that bait is slept on. It's such a good trailer. But I always think, oh, I need more of this bait. And the Beast Coast tungsten jig is one of the best jigs I've ever thrown. Another one I really like is the War Eagle Jigsu or Jigjusu or Pussy Noosie. Oh, that sounded weird. Excuse me. But whatever that one is called that Jason Christie used when he won the Classic a few years, when Dave Mercer said Christie conquers the Classic 397 times because he thought it was super clever. I need more jig options. And that's not just me being an angler, being like all fake paranoid and whatever. And so this is where the engagement factor comes in. I need more jig options. And I'm down to spend whatever, dude. I'm not rich or anything, but like when it comes to fishing, I like using stuff that I'm confident in, that I like how it swims, I like how it fishes, and skipping jigs, flipping jigs, 3/8, 5/8. I do throw heavier than that, 3/4 ounce, whatever, but not very often. Usually that's just more if I'm trying to punch through stuff. Obviously, if I'm throwing a football jig, I'll go heavier, but I don't really love throwing a football jig, if I'm being honest. It's sort of like throwing a Carolina rig. Like, it's just so freaking boring. Just chucking it out there and slowly winding it back to the boat. It's not my favorite. But what I wanted to ask anybody listening to this podcast for help with is give me some jig ideas, dude. Like, for real. Give me some jig ideas. What are some of your favorites? Get specific. Size, color, brand, model, weight for certain circumstances. And then the second part of the question, and I'm legitimately wanting your help. The second part of the question is, what's your favorite trailer? Because I vacillate on that a lot. And then you see dudes like winning derbs, like Zach Burge with a straight twister tail. Also, how freaking good is Zach Burge at fishing? Like, I feel like the last couple years, there's just been these dudes who have just, all right, well, you know, like when you were in 4th grade or something and you're playing one-on-one with your friend and like, all right, we're going to 11, got to win by 2. And he gets up on you like 8-1. And then you say the inevitable words, all right, I'm gonna start playing for real now. It's like a whole bunch of dudes in professional competitive bass fishing have all said, all right, I'm gonna start playing for real now, and just started going to work. Patrick Walters, Drew Gill, Jacob Wheeler, which he's been on that for a while, Easton Fothergill, even Trey McKinney, Zach Burge. These dudes have just been like, you know what? I'm done playing games. I'm going to go to work now. The Johnston brothers, they just start winning all the time. It's crazy. But he was throwing like this hot pink. I think that was a swim jig, though, and that's not exactly what I'm talking about. But he had just a twister tail on the back of it. So I want to know, what are some really good jigs that you like? It could be JDM. like, you know, like Japanese, not so common stuff. Another one of my favorites is from arguably my favorite bass fisherman of all time. I think my favorite ever is Ike, and his jig is also super dope. The Missile Jig compact one, the one that has like bright orange splatter paint on it. I love that bait. Love that bait. Although I will say twice I've had the weed guard, the little hook guard thing, come completely out of the head of the jig. Like all of the little strands of whatever they are, all of them have come out. Twice. So that's not super encouraging. But I do like those compact jigs. I think they make a lot of sense, especially if you're fishing waters with smallmouth where, exactly as the name implies, their mouth doesn't open as much as a largemouth. So a compact jig maybe makes more sense. Maybe that's stupid, but like that Beast Coast jig that I lost, I think it was called Elite Craw. Good Lord, that's a good looking color. But another one of my favorites, as I was trying to get to, was the Picasso jig. I think it was called the Hog Snatcher by Aaron Martins, who, as everybody knows, was taken from us way too soon. One of the most likable, smart, funny, authentic. I remember hearing a story one time about a guy who his dream was to like drive around and essentially photograph, document, interview bass anglers, and he didn't have a ton of money for it. Excuse me. And so Aaron Martins gave him like $1,000 out of his pocket one time just to help him like with gas money and stuff. Like that's just how the dude was. But that Picasso Hog Snatcher jig, I don't even know if they make it anymore, but that's a unique one. If you look at the weed guard on it, instead of being like the little black or clear strands of fluorocarbon, it was like 3 or 4, maybe it was 5 really skinny little metal wires. And then they had like a little goop on the end, so the end of them wasn't rough. So smart. But to you, what's a good jig? What's a jig you like? It could be Strike King. It could be something weird and JDM-ish. It could be something you get at Walmart, like an Arky jig. I'm not kidding. It could be a strange, small local brand to you. Like, message me. I'll send you money. You buy that weird local to you jig and send it to me. I'm not kidding. Help me. I really, like, I was thinking about it. I've always said my favorite way to catch bass is square bills on rocks, and I do love that bite. Like when it's hunting, dunk, 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 bouncing around the rocks, and then bam! You know, you think you're on a rock and it starts swimming off. Like that is so stinking fun. And I think it works all the time. Early season, Kevin Short, great square bill fisherman, talks about hot weather being the juice for that. Chatterbait fishing, I don't love it as much as Lola does, but I do love it. Swim jigs, skipping them under docks, so fun. Drop shotting, like fighting on spinning tackle and feeling your drag pull and whatever. But I think, as I've been considering it, I think my favorite bite on the planet is jig and pig fishing. Flipping a jig, skipping a jig, flipping and pitching. Man, I'll never forget the very first time I ever used a jig was in Austin, Texas, in a little creek that I found. And in this little creek, there was like a deep pocket that was probably 15 yards across and maybe like 40 yards long. And then in one side of that pocket, the water went from, I didn't have any electronics, but I'm assuming somewhere from like 2 to 3 feet, and in that little deep spot, maybe like 7 to 8, because I would put my whole rod down, and I think I was using a 7-foot rod, and I couldn't really touch the bottom. And if you flipped a jig in there and hopped it down, like the, what do you even call that? The hill, I guess, like the slant, like where it would get deeper, you could get bites all the time. I love jig fishing. Help me. What are some good jigs? What are some good trailers? Be specific. Contact at tackleandtacos.com or message us on socials, and I appreciate you. Make today a great day. It's the only one of these days in this year you will ever get. Don't waste it being a penis. Like, be a good person. Give a crap about people. Give a crap about yourself. Positivity is worth the effort. Tackleandtacos.com. We'll catch you on the next one.